It's your boy. Long time no see. I've had a very busy last couple of months, and really I just wanted to fill you guys in on kind of a new project that I'm working on. And maybe tell you a little bit about the story of how I ended up not making any content for the last couple of months, so stay tuned for that. But let's jump right into this. So as you guys might have seen, or I might have mentioned it maybe in some other videos, about my Vega 56. So I've got a Gigabyte Vega 56, which is pretty notorious for having VRMs on the backside of the PCB. I was talking to a couple of friends of mine. They've even had some NVIDIA Gigabyte cards with VRMs on the back that have been total trash. They overheat. I RMA'd this card. They came back after a month of fixing it. And essentially what they did was they caked on about a pound of thermal paste. And then they over-tightened the cooler and actually bent it. So if you look at this very carefully from the side, you can see the fins here bent down. They tried to put too much pressure on it to try and get it to close on top. I don't know what Gigabyte's doing. I'll never buy another Gigabyte card, but I already bought this one, so we're going to make it work. And what I'm doing here is I've taken the original fans off, and I've taken the back plate off here, and you can see on the back of this back plate it has a heat pipe to try and cool the rear VRMs. I'm going to reuse the back plate, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up increasing the surface area by adding some very slim heat sinks attached to the back plate. I'm probably going to end up sanding that back plate while I do this to get good thermal conductivity. But I have some options here. I have some thermal glue. I might be able to just glue those on. I might have to screw them in. I've got some extra screws to do that. I've got a cheap kit of thermal paste here just to redo the cooler as I go to put it back on. That hopefully will fix the issue, because the card really, it runs fine for about an hour or two until it heat soaks. Those back VRMs get to like 98 degrees Celsius, and then well, at that point the whole card shuts off because they're not regulating voltage correctly. This card used to be sitting over here in the background. The good thing though is that the chip on here undervolts very well, and I was able to push it for a little while longer before the VRMs would overheat. So what I've designed here with help of another friend is mounting chassis for two 120 millimeter slim fans. And this card does have a 4-pin fan header, but it's a miniature version of that. So I'm going to end up having to build an adapter connector for this. I don't want to splice this because I want to reuse these fans later if I want to. I'm going to release these STL files for you guys. As of right now, they mount like this on the cooler. I measured this based off of the original plastic fan shroud, so it sticks up, but you can actually move this down further if you want and then screw the screws in further down. You'll just have to drill holes for that. It's not how we measured it, and I didn't want to try and measure it off of my heatsink because my heatsink has got that warp in it. It's going to mess up the build if you guys want to 3D print this yourself for your own crappy Gigabyte Vega 56. I know there's a lot of these that got sold. They were on sale. They're not bad cards. Like the Vega 56 is not a bad chip still. It's pretty powerful for what it is. It's just a bad PCB, so we can fix that. So what I'm going to do is get these mounted on here. That will cool the front side, and hopefully there's enough air cooling passively to hit those fins on the back and keep those rear VRMs cool once I get it all back together. But I'm waiting for those things to come in, so you're going to see a jump here once I get those, and we'll finish up the rest of the video at that point, and I'll show you guys kind of the next steps here, how it goes together. So stay tuned for that. And it's been a couple of days. I've got the whole thing built and assembled, and I got a haircut. So in any case, here it is. We're probably going to roll some B-roll over this. There it is. It's heavy. All put together. Two 120 millimeter slim fans mounted on. Screwed right into the heatsink as the original was, but with slightly larger screws. And then on this back side here is where the fun happens. We've got two aluminum heat sinks that are basically thermal glued with thermal paste in the center. And I had to drill 2 holes. It's not the prettiest thing. But I had to drill 2 holes in the back there to mount the GPU cooler, because I didn't want to try and mount through the heat sinks there, because if I try to mount through the heat sinks, then I figured the pressure on the GPU would be incorrect, and so I had to mount through them instead of on top of them. I think I said that right. Maybe. In any case, the screws go all the way through back to the original base plate. I did sand the plate I did sand the back plate, so they have good conductivity thermally. And I did some initial testing, and so far the VRM temps are staying very controlled. The max I got up to was about 90 C. The fans themselves are so quiet that you can run them 100% and you don't even hear it over the case fans. Running at 100% and setting that fan profile that way keeps the GPU temp at 65 degrees Celsius under load, which I think is pretty darn good, considering the stock cooler would get up there around 90 and sound like a jet engine taking off, and then promptly lock because the VRM temps would be over 100 something plus degrees, and that's Celsius. So they would just boil off and the whole thing would shut off and die. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to release these STL files for you guys to download. I'll have a link down in the video description. Just keep in mind, like I said, the mounting holes you may need to change or drill, because my heatsink is bent thanks to the RMA. And you'll have to look on Amazon. I'll put some links down there below for that too. You can buy these aluminum heat sinks. They're like $10 or $15. You can buy some thermal glue and a whole bunch of thermal paste. I've got every bit of thermal paste I could find in my house and ordered some extras and still almost ran out. So you're going to need a lot of thermal paste for this. As far as the fans go to mount those, what I've done is I've created a adapter kit, because they use a smaller fan header. This is technically not quite the right kit, but it works. And you get these little things here, and you really should get the tool for this. And basically you can make your own plugs. And that's all I did. The fan header, although smaller, is the exact same pinout as a standard fan header you would use on your motherboard. So you can just basically make these little adapters here, and you'll probably see some of that in the B-roll as it's running through right now. Basically, that way these fans are totally reusable. I didn't have to cut anything or change anything about those fans. So when this card gets too old, I don't want to use it anymore, I can just pull those fans off and continue using those fans if they hold up. And I actually have an extra fan because I had initially planned to put one on the back. I found that I didn't need to, which is awesome. It's not the prettiest thing on the back, but I gotta say, I think the front looks pretty sweet, and that's the part you're gonna see. I did do a couple benchmarks. We'll throw those up on the screen too. You can have a look at those. Nothing too fancy. I was really just trying to test the card and see how it held up thermally. So anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more crazy stuff like this.